Aloha, I'm Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and this is Sustainable Hawaii, airing live every Tuesday from noon to 12:30 at the Think Tech Hawaii studio in downtown Honolulu. Our show today is about sustainable development and culture. In the old 1987 UN definition that was widely adopted of sustainable development, the definition said that we meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This was most often used in relationship to development, planning, economics, and the environment. The importance of culture was left out often in this initial conversation, until recently. Community values and traditions, shared memories and aspirations, and the ways we establish and transmit these into a shared way of life has been taken for granted in the pursuit of natural resource preservation, science, and technology fixes. But in the last several years, there has been an increased interest in exploring the importance of culture in local and global sustainability. Our guest today is Sabra Kauka, the go-to person on Kauai from almost anything to do with Hawaiian culture. She's called upon as an expert in natural resource management, ethnobotany, and preservation of historic sites. Sabra is a Kumu of Hawaiian Studies and Hula Halau Napua Okamaili at Island School on Kauai. She also coordinates the Hawaiian Studies Cultural Personnel Resources for the State Department of Education on Kauai. She's a founding member and president of Napali Coast Ohana, the caretakers of Nualolokai State Park on Kauai. She also serves as a board member of Garden Island Resource Conservation and Development, and she's a member of the Haleopio Kauai Community Partnership, a hui for Hawaii Hopes. Welcome, Sabra, to Sustainable Hawaii.
Mahalo, thank you for inviting me, Kirsten. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we're so appreciative that you've come from Kauai to keep us informed about what's happening culturally, which is such an important integral part of sustainability, as I know that you teach and practice. Tell us why that's so.
Well, I'm so delighted that you chose Limahuli Garden as a backdrop for this opening session here, because it is a living example of sustainability and culture. They recently built Hale Kahiko, which is an old style of house, and it was a community effort. They have taro patches and lo'i that continue to provide food for the community, and it is a place that we recently visited on our statewide Hawaiian Studies Kupuna Conference on Kauai.
Tell me about that statewide Kupuna Conference. Why is that important, and what did they accomplish?
Well, for the past 21, maybe 24, maybe even 25 years, we have been hosting, each island has been hosting a conference for those who teach in the schools. And we started on Kauai many, many years ago. At first we stayed in Kokee at the Outdoor Education Center there. And we took 2 nights up there and then 2 nights down at Camp Maui in Honolulu. In Haena. And when we do these workshops, the conferences, the point of them is to introduce people to the places that we love and to tell them about the mo'olelo, the stories, the activities, the place names, and to just familiarize them with the areas that we call home on each of our islands.
I know that many of the things that you have learned and translated come from your background. Also, you were a photojournalist at one time.
Well, this is true. For many years before I came home, for the better part of 20 years, I carried a camera and took pictures and wrote stories, and I still appreciate good journalism very much.
What is the role of journalism in helping to translate culture for our forward movement, our forward development in Hawaii?
I think it's always important to tell the story, to tell it accurately, to tell it well. It's fun, you know. I still have a lot of fun with it. I still appreciate good work, but you need to tell the story. And part of our conference is always to do some oral history recording, which we had talked about earlier. You know.
And I know that one of the things that you've done is set up centers or opportunities where people can take oral histories.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most wonderful sayings in Hawaiian language is that we inform our future by knowing our past.
Oh yes, very much.
And why does informing our future with our past matter as we try and create a more sustainable world?
Well, those of us who teach Hawaiian studies, we feel it's very important that the children who are growing up know the place where they live, no matter where they came from, because we all migrated from somewhere. Granted, I am descended from those first arrivals to Hawaii over 1,000 years ago, maybe. But the children who live here today, we want them to know this place. We want them to know the streams, the wind, the rain, the ocean where they live. And so that in becoming familiar with it, that they will feel compelled to take care of it.
And I imagine in becoming familiar with it, they're also learning about how it works. I mean,
Oh, absolutely. These systems are important. The water systems, the rain, the rivers, the streams. It's important to keep them clean and clear and running, and to share that water with everybody along the way.
And Native Hawaiian knowledge that we're only beginning now in many ways to understand and to document was such great depth of understanding of how those rains came, the different kinds of rains,
Oh, yes.
the paths of the streams.
Yeah, yes, there's a beautiful book out now that talks about the rain names on every island. It's quite beautiful.
And I understand that she has one coming out about the winds as well.
Oh, I think that's important too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder, it would be very interesting to know how she would incorporate how those winds are changing and what's coming on the tides of those rains and winds, as opposed to what Hawaiians faced when they were first documenting and passing down those oli, those stories. Now we have acid rain.
Oh dear.
How are we able to incorporate that knowledge with the traditional wisdom to be able to move forward in a more resilient way for Hawaii?
Well, I think it's important that, you know, that we measure these changes. I think it's important that we teach our children to, our students, you know, we're getting up to high school and university level, to be able to measure the changes in the weather, to record rainfall, to record data, to measure. Well, we have a group on Kauai that measures, they test the streams, they test all the most favorite surfing spots, Surf Rider Kauai, for pollution, and they send it out monthly, and it's very important information, so that our all the people who go out to surf or swim in these areas know, all right, if you choose to go into this area and it's high in E. coli, you better make sure you rinse off, you know, right after you come out. It's important. It's important that we gather this information.
So it's a wonderful melding between modern science and native wisdom.
Yeah, ancient arts and crafts too, yeah.
And is that part of the role that you see yourself in teaching both at the Department of Education and Island School?
I think so. It's very important to me that the children who are growing up on Kauai know the island, know the places. As I said, because it's my hope that by knowing about these places and appreciating them, they will grow up to take care of them.
So what are some of the classes that you teach that help them to understand that?
Shall we move to the next slide?
Sure.
Okay.
We have a wonderful slide, cleaning Kalo.
Right. Here, this is just hands working together to clean taro. And what we did was we went to Waipa. Waipa is a wonderful project. It's on Kamehameha School's land. It's leased to the Hawaiian farmers of Hanalei. Their executive director is Stacy Sproat-Beck. And for a conference that we held the end of May, early part of June, that was one of our first stops in the garden, was to visit Waipa.
And some of the people involved in that were, and we have a slide, I think, showing that.
Go ahead, move on.
Who do they represent?
These rascals are cleaning the taro, and they're from every island. They come from Hawaii Island, Mokuokeawe, they come from Maui, and they come from Oahu. We had about 60 participants from off island, and another 20, 25 from Kauai, so there was quite a few people up there on North Shore. We focused on the district of Hanalei, which is from Kalihivai all the way to Ke'e.
On the North Shore.
On the North Shore of Kauai. And we visited one sacred places, Keahualaka, Hula. We visited Limuhuli Garden, which was in this shot, and the Hui Maka'ainana o Makana, Uncle Tommy Hashimoto and Presley Wan, Carlos Andrade, and all of those people who are taking care, they're restoring the lo'i at Makana. And that was our first day.
And just for our audience who don't live here, the lo'i at Makana, what are those exactly?
Lo'i are taro patches, which you see on the shot behind us. A lo'i is a taro patch, a terraced area like these are.
And the lo'i throughout Kauai are being restored, and are there new ones being created?
No, it's not. Well, yeah. I don't know if new ones being created. What they're doing is there's tremendous amount of restoration work going on, and caretaking in Haena, at Ke'e, at Kealea, and the folks at Waimea are strong, at Makaweli, yeah.
And are these mostly volunteer groups, or is there also government funding and assistance in supporting the restoration?
There is some assistance, but it's very much a volunteer effort, yeah.
And so it's important for the sustainability of Kauai.
Absolutely,
Because
not just Kauai.
it's a food source?
I was at a luau on Maui a few months ago, and I said, "Oh, this poi is so good. It's just like the poi at home." And they said, "That's because the Kalo came from Hanalei." I was astonished because I said, "You don't have enough Kalo here on Maui?" They said, "No, we don't have enough water." And I went, "Oh my gosh, that's not a good indication."
So that's a great way that the traditional practices and agriculture and culture inform us about the conditions sustainably.
Very much, very much.
Yeah.
Because the traditional systems are sustainable. It's based on sustainability.
So if we don't have enough Kalo, how are people able to practice their traditional diet,
well, like
cooking?
Maui, they got to order it from Kauai. You know, we have the largest Kalo growing area in Hawaii is on Kauai at Hanalei.
So are there actual plans and strategies in place to expand Kalo production?
Oh yeah, there's an avid group that's doing that.
Are they located here or on Kauai?
Oh, they're all over the islands.
That's true.
Very, very much all over the islands.
And so they must be very involved in the issues of water rights.
Oh,
particularly
absolutely.
the
Water ties in directly to the cultivation of Kalo.
So in your role with the Resource Conservation and District on Kauai, what are some of those water issues that tie in with Kalo and other agricultural practices?
Well, I'm going to step back just a second there, because the reason I joined the Garden Island RC&D many years ago was because I needed a nonprofit umbrella for the work I was doing with the kupuna. Because when it came up, the idea to host a conference, statewide conference, I wanted to get grants to help us do this, because DOE didn't have enough money to pay for everything. So we brought our project. The kupuna wanted to do the work, but they didn't want to sign any papers. And I went, okay. So I had to find an organization that was solid in all the paperwork, and that's RC&D. Repeat your question again, though.
Well, I'd like to take a short break, and then we'll come back and talk more about natural resource preservation and its link with cultural preservation.
You bet.
We'll be right back with Sustainable Hawaii.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address issues of importance for those of us who live here on the most isolated landmass on the planet. Please come join me Fridays at 3 p.m. Mahalo.
Hi, I'm Kilauea Akina, president of the Grassroots Institute. I'd love you to join us every week, Mondays at 2 o'clock p.m. for E Hana Kako. Let's work together. We report every week on the good things going on in our state, as well as the better things that can go on in the future. We have guests covering everything from the economy, the government, and society. See you Mondays on E Hana Kako at 2 o'clock p.m. Until then, I'm Kilauea Akina. Aloha.
Hi, we're back with Sustainable Hawaii, talking about cultural preservation and its importance with Sabra Kauka from Kauai, and particularly how it relates to resource management and in the integral connection with sustainable development.
Well, as part of culture and sustainability, it's traditional for us to tell stories through hula. And so at our conference, we did have one of our kumu is Lehi Eleni Kirkpatrick, and we had asked her to teach a hula about Hanalei district. And so here on the front porch, on the lanai of the beautiful old home, Kauai Keolani home there in Hanalei, courtesy of Patsy Wilcox Sheehan, we held many of our workshops, and my core group, the Kauai group, actually, we were so honored to be able to stay in this beautiful old home. It is so elegant.
I've actually been there as well.
Oh, yes.
It's
Isn't
impressive.
it beautiful?
And it's really important also because they built the homes in those days to really last through many of the storms. It's been there through all of the major hurricanes.
It has.
And we could learn from that.
Oh, very much,
sustainably as well.
and then right behind it, they have a beautiful fish pond that has been restored by Buddy Keala. And it's in production. I mean, it has many fish in there.
And share with our audience why the Hawaiians built the fish ponds and what are they doing for us today?
Oh my goodness, those fish ponds can feed many, many people, many people. And restoring them, of course, it requires that you have the fresh flow of, constant flow of fresh water mixed with the salt water from the sea, and that it be clean and clear. So it takes maintenance, but it's possible.
So what they did is they made the weirs such that the fish could come in small.
That's right.
They grew. They couldn't get out.
That's right.
So it was easy fishing.
Yeah, very, very good.
And
very
yet they
wise
were
use.
able to limit their take, whereas we make fishing easier and easier and we don't limit the take, or we have begun to now. But they knew that over 1,000 years ago.
Very much. So when I take my hula halau and I take my students from Island School out to see these places and tell the stories and to learn the hula and the chants that speak about these places, that's what I want them to know, and I want them to remember.
So in remembering the olelo and in learning the hula, and we have a photo here of hula kahiko, correct?
Right. These are some of my students at Island School, and they participated in hula this year. It's an elective class, so I like it because when they choose to be there, there's so much, it's fun to teach. And the name that I chose for this halau is Napua o Kamaile. Napua, the flowers of Kamaile. Kamaile is the tallest peak in Nuololokai, and we have a curatorship project there that we've worked on since shortly after Hurricane Iniki.
And what is the importance of it?
Oh my goodness! Well, you have to come sometime.
I have been there years ago before the hurricane.
Okay, then it was very overgrown.
Yes.
Yes, you could hardly see 5 feet in front of you at the time. But we've done considerable restoration work there on the Napali coast.
So in restoring it, when you're teaching hula and learning, the students are not only learning to dance, but they're learning to tell the history of the area.
Yes. And recently one of my students wrote to me, well, it was on her Facebook post, and she said she may not have realized at the time how important it was for her to be there to touch the culture of the place, but it has inspired her in her studies since then, and she's gone on to study at University of Hawaii in Hilo.
And you mentioned working with the kupuna. We have a beautiful shot, I think, of where is this taking place?
This is with our last aha kupuna on Kauai, and this is at Kilauea Point National Wildlife Refuge. The weather in Hanalei, it either pours like crazy or it's sunny and hot. And several times we had to nalu. I told everybody, just nalu, go with the flow, wave, because some of the events that we had planned were not possible because of the rain. The trails became too slippery. So we put everybody in the vans and took them up to Kilauea Point, and they loved it because it was sunny and they could see the Eva birds and the Kauai Kea, the long-tailed tropic birds, and all these beautiful birds were out in their element above this refuge.
And you also have a program at Hanalei, is that the correct pronunciation?
Hula.
Hanalei.
Yeah.
And what's that about?
Actually, this project here, these friends of mine have been, this is Malama Hula is a Hui, is another organization. It's another nonprofit, but they have taken on the task of restoring this estuary. And this photograph is taken at right by the small boat harbor down at Nawiliwili. This is in Niumalu. The area behind them is Puali Stream, Puali Marsh, Puali Estuary, and they have cleared the mangrove, the invasive mangrove that grows there. And as a result of that, we've seen an increase in the native plants that have popped up and which have been cultivated there. We have makaloa growing there now. We have native birds who've come in. And so this ahu was built by these young people as a kind of a statement that's saying we are here, we are alive, we take kuleana, we take responsibility for taking care of this beautiful place. And their plan is to go all the way up Hula River to clean and clear Alikoko, which is Menehune Fish Pond.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, they're working with the
Now,
family that owns it.
that place is particularly important because although it's the small boat harbor, it sits right next to the main harbor where cruise ships come in amongst other commercial vessels.
Yeah, that's our main port on Kauai.
And so it has an importance for tourism as well. Is that something that you're integrating into the project?
Oh, I think there have been many tour groups now who include viewing Puali Marsh and the restoration efforts as part of their tour, especially when they take visitors up to look at Alikoko Fish Pond.
And the importance of clearing mangrove and reestablishing native species is that they're better at actually maintaining the water,
the whole system,
earth system, the
whole
nexus
system.
where it all comes together at that estuary.
Right.
Right, and the mangroves where in many other parts of the world they're very effective in the ecosystem they're meant to be in.
Right.
In that location, they're not, and they were actually inhibiting the free flow of water. And what were some of the other things they were doing?
Well, our concern is that the mangrove is growing on top of the walls for the fish pond, and will, if it's not happening already, will soon be tearing it up. Yeah, and I think these young people would like to put that fish pond back into production, which is going to be a challenge.
Now, one of the things that we've used to work together on Kauai, and really we're very concerned with and delighted by some of the outcomes, was the visitor industry's response to efforts at cultural restoration and including it in the conversation about a sustainable Kauai. What have been some of your experiences with the visitor industry in those years since we worked together?
I think there's a great deal of awareness from my friends who work in the visitor industry that culture is important, that visitors are interested in it, that the sacred places on the island are once again, people are not just people who live here, but people from afar are interested in these sorts of things, in the culture and history of a place.
And why do you think that is? Is it just pure curiosity, or are they learning?
I think it's because, number one, it's unique. It's unique to these, every part of the world has places that are unique to them, and Kauai and Hawaii as a whole, very much.
And I think that everywhere we go, when we pick up local knowledge, particularly ancient wisdom about natural resource management, it incorporates into our pursuit and our applications of more technical scientific resources. And it allows us, to be able to learn from every different perspective. There's a beautiful photo that
could you
that
go
I
back
just
to that
talked through,
picture
sorry.
of our team at Nuololokai? Exactly. So this project, shortly before Hurricane Iniki, like maybe 10 days before Hurricane Iniki hit, as a result of the work that Hui Malama was doing across the country. I mean, and Senator Inouye and the NAGPRA, it's called, Native American Graves Repatriation and Protection Act. Any university or museum that received federal funds was required to return ancestral remains to their place of origin. Kauai received hundreds back. And some of those were from this beautiful area on the Napali coast at Nuololokai. So we took our first reinterment back before the hurricane. After the hurricane, you know, it took us a couple of years to put the community back into working order. And someone on that trip looked around on their first trip and they said, gee, somebody ought to take care of this place. And I thought to myself, don't look at me, I gotta make a living. I don't have time for this. But over the years, we've managed to go in 3 or 4 times a year during the summer months when it's accessible. And my core team, we take in for 5 days, a 5-day work trip. But recently, and that picture's indication of it, is evidence of it, we have found that, you know, a lot of young people don't have 5 days that they can give a volunteer project. They have to make a living, they have to raise their families. And so we began to do 1-day intensive trips. That means from 5 o'clock in the morning to sunset, at least 12 hours, and they hit the ground running. And it was fabulous because you only have to take in the supplies that you need for that day. You don't need to set up a big tent or tarps or anything.
So what do they take away with them when they leave there?
I think an appreciation of place, the joy of taking care of a beautiful place. This next slide on Nuololo Kai is of, well, this one here, this is an example of the restoration work that is being led very much by Randy Wickman, Kanan Ho'okano, Keau Naismith, Paleke Flores, Kaina Makua. Randy's wife, Victoria Wickman, is a state parks archaeologist. But this was totally trashed by goats walking on it, and it's just so beautiful to see the restoration work that's going on. We also have botanical restoration going on in there in addition to this
So Sabra, all of this restoration is really contributing to the wealth of knowledge about how to keep Kauai sustainable.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
So as we close, I just want to really thank you because you do phenomenal work in the community, and we appreciate you coming over and sharing it with us, and we'll hope you come back again to Sustainable
mahalo
Hawaii.
nui. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. Aloha.
And tune in next Tuesday for another interesting episode of Sustainable Hawaii.